Our next storyteller is Mathew Ellinwood. He is an associate professor of animal science. He is a comparative medical genetics researcher who uses his veterinary medicine and PhD training to study rare human genetic diseases. And his story is called Fairytales for Curmudgeons.
Hi there. Thank you for the opportunity to share this story with you. So in 2014 in December, I was lucky enough to get to go to Disney World for work. And you may say, wait a second, how do you score a trip to Disney World when you're a veterinarian doing biomedical research? Well, it just so happens that for many years I've been a member of the Scientific Advisory Board panel for a group of diseases, a family foundation focused on a group of diseases called the mucopolysaccharidoses. That's a huge mouthful, so we call them the MPS diseases. And I was the chair at the time of the Scientific Advisory Board for the MPS Society, and they have an annual conference in Disney World. And so I was required to show up as a representative from the Scientific Advisory Board. Those of you who know me may know that Disney World is not my thing. I find it the most inauthentic expression of culture and art in the world, and there are a lot of other things I would rather do than spend my time at Disney World. There's nothing there that is authentic or real. But this was a good cause, and I was glad to be going. So about these diseases, if you've ever heard of a disease called Tay-Sachs, you know something about the MPS disorders. They're rare, often lethal, pediatric, often neurodegenerative diseases. And when I started in the field in 1998, there were 11 diseases, and we have had no treatments. Starting in 2002, we started to develop some treatments, but we don't have all of them treated at this point. There's still a lot of work for us to do. So how did I get involved in this as a veterinarian? Well, it turns out our dogs and cats get these diseases as well. And we can learn a lot from them, both in how the diseases progress and how we can treat them more effectively. And that is how I had gotten into the field. So that's my work and my story, and I was coming out of one of the sessions at the meeting in Disney World, and I was, a fair thing to say, I was attacked by these two little kids, just screaming in glee, big smiles. This is a picture of Amelia, and her brother Zach was sort of grabbing onto my feet and hugging my legs and smiling, and I had never met these kids, but they were adorable. One of the things I noted specifically was I had no idea which form of MPS they had. So all of these diseases have a very peculiar, what we call in the field, habitus. The patients look very specific, and you can see them immediately and know that's an MPS 3 child, that's an MPS 4 child. And I looked at these kids, and they just looked normal. I could not see anything at all wrong with them. It was quite curious to me. So I got talking with their mom, Brooke, and we got to visiting. And so she had told me that when she and her husband had found out they were pregnant with Amelia, their boy Zach had just been diagnosed with MPS 1, a devastating disease. Untreated, this is often fatal by the age of 5. So Zach was being bone marrow transplanted, and the minute Amelia was born, they knew that unfortunately she had this disease as well. They immediately got her on something called enzyme replacement therapy within weeks, and she was bone marrow transplanted within months. And we got talking, and it became very clear that work I had done with one of my collaborators, Patty Dixon, at the LA Biomedical Research Institute, she was the lead on this research, using the dog model had been fundamental in the speed with which Amelia had gone on enzyme replacement therapy. We had shown in the dogs that if you start treating at birth with triple the dose that's normally given, you can actually treat the brain disease by giving enzyme intravenously. Furthermore, it corrected disease in the cornea and the heart valves that was never seen by any treatment technique. That was thrilling news to me. It meant so much to see kids who'd had this devastating disease impacted by the treatments that we had been developing. And there is still a lot of work yet to be done, but there's extraordinary progress. We now have treatments of some sort for MPS 1, MPS 2. There's treatment under development for something called MPS 3B, MPS 4A, MPS 6, and MPS 7. But the treatments are not always optimal or complete. But they do have a great benefit. An example you can see at the family conference. So they have a gala at the conference every year. And the thing that was amazing this year, the kids were out dancing. The gala conference was themed on a prom. And so you had these kids, teenagers, dancing it up in great ways. And not only were they being treated, but they also had more energy. So they could stay up late. They could move around. It was extraordinary to see. The other thing that I loved about that gala dinner was afterwards, we got to go see the kids interact with Disney characters. So this was interesting. They had the cartoon characters and the princesses. I could not watch the cartoon characters with the kids because they have masks and it looks creepy to me. But the kids were totally engaged. But the princesses, these young women are total professionals. They never lose character. The other thing that's interesting is there's a price category for princesses. This was the year of Frozen, so we could not afford Elsa. And Beauty and the Beast did not come out in live action, and so we could still afford Belle. And then in between, we also got Aurora. And as I said, these women are professionals. Some of these kids, if they're not treated, they are not necessarily easily manageable children, and these women were so good with them. It was a joy to watch. And they had this long line, and all these kids came up. And then you saw these two kids. And this was Zach and his sister Amelia. And the look, the magnetic look between those kids and Belle and Aurora, this was the most wonderful expression of authentic admiration and wonder I could possibly imagine. And this was a fairy tale full of authenticity and one I could totally get behind. And it was a really powerful trip for me to realize that quite explicitly Brooke had told us that our research had really directed the clinical application that was used with these kids. So that's my story. Thank you guys very much for a chance to share it.